When we have a loved one suffering from addiction, it's amazed me over the years that regardless of people's cultural background or their financial means or where they live, that families will always fall into the trap which we call the drama triangle. And one way to interpret the drama triangle is to identify that we have our loved one stuck down a ditch. Their life is not going to plan. We are lurching from one crisis to the next, and we can see that they're struggling. Things are not working out for them. Families and individuals in that family will always fall into two categories. The first is the persecutor. My grandfather was the classic persecutor. He would regularly run to the edge of the ditch. Now, he would do that because he loved me and he had a genuine concern for me. But when he got to the edge of that ditch, he would call me a disgrace. How could you behave like this? You've had the best education, you've had the best opportunities, and this is the life that you choose to live. You are a disgrace and you need to pull your socks up and change. Now, my grandfather loved me and he had a genuine concern for me, but he didn't understand addiction. And what he was trying to do was to shame me out of my addiction. If I would just realise that I'd gone down the wrong path and I needed to change, then I would. But my grandfather did not understand addiction is an illness like any other. You can't shame someone out of addiction any more than you can shame them out of cancer. Now, if I had cancer and he ran to the edge of the ditch and said, "Look at you, you've got a tumour, you're an absolute disgrace, how dare you get cancer? You've had the best opportunities in life," my family would all step in and say, "Grandpa, what are you doing? You can't talk to him like that, he's sick." But because we don't understand addiction, we sometimes allow Grandpa to do that. And the net result is, I stay sick. In fact, I just turn away and I avoid the persecutor. And the net result is I stay sick. Persecution is a complete waste of time. We cannot shame someone out of addiction. We cannot talk them out of addiction. So the constant pep talks and the constant pull your socks up are a complete waste of time. The second category, which family members will fall into, is the enabler. My mother was the classic enabler. She would regularly run to the edge of that ditch and say something along the lines of, "My poor boy, this is terrible. We can't allow you to live like this. We must help you." Because she could see that I was not functioning, and she thought if she functioned enough for the both of us, that it would be okay. So my mother would organise accommodation for me. She'd even decorate houses and make them nice in case I met a nice girl. She'd make my brother, who was quite successful and stable, give me a job, and I would turn up, sit in the corner and pretend I was doing him a favour by being there and put my hand out for a paycheck. She'd make sure I had food and that I was fed well. She even made sure I had a vehicle. Young gentlemen must have a car. She would pay legal fees for me. The list goes on and on. Now, once again, while I'm all for having a nice house and a job, these are as useful for addiction as they are for cancer. For example, if I had cancer or diabetes or any other disease for that instance and I was having trouble functioning, the solution would not be, "You've got diabetes, let's get you a house, a job, some food, a car, and I'll pay you legal fees and your diabetes will just go away." No, they would have demanded I engage in treatment and I go through the process of treatment to resolve my diabetes. But because they didn't understand addiction, they thought that this was going to help and one day I would slowly grow out of it. Now, enabling also has a second problem, which is very dangerous. By continuing to enable me and function for me on my behalf, the ditch that I was living in was quite comfortable. I was a raging middle-class drug addict from the suburbs, but I had a house, I had a job, I had a car. I could even go out at functions and swap work stories and give people lifts home. I appeared on the surface normal. Not because I was, but because my family and my mother was providing all of this for me. And it created delusion in my mind that I'm not a drug addict. In fact, periodically when people would be brave enough to talk to me and address my drug problem with me, I would be literally offended. How could they think this about me? I'm not a drug addict. The drug addicts are out there in the park, they're bums on the street. I'm not a junkie, I'm not a drug addict. I was certainly a drug addict. I was just a drug addict with an enabling family that kept me from the consequences of my illness. This is a common problem with drug addicts. We find it very difficult to accept the fact we need treatment when everything in our life is taken care of. Now, the enabler and the persecutor won't sit all the time in one spot. Sometimes my mother would get so frustrated and angry, she'd storm in, she'd call me a little shit, nothing she ever does works, and she's really angry, and she'd persecute me. But then she'd normally feel really guilty and go buy me a new car. Likewise, my grandfather. He would sometimes come in, sit me down, have a heart-to-heart, write me a check for something, for some new fantastic idea, a new course I was doing, or a new business. I'd blow it on drugs, and he'd go back to persecuting. You see, whenever I try and help you, you're a bum, there's nothing, you need to change your life. So sometimes individuals will swing, but they will spend most of their time either enabling or persecuting where they feel most comfortable. The drama triangle creates a sick family dynamic where everybody is frustrated, everybody is angry, everybody is fearful. If you can see this dynamic established or establishing in your family, it's time to get professional help, and it's time to get your loved one, your addict, into treatment. Because we can enable and we can persecute until the cows come home. But the net result is your addict stays sick, if they're lucky, or die. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the video.